So I've got good news for you and bad news. The good news is that your ideal customer is out there and they're looking for a business with exactly your product or service. The bad news, they're not going to buy from you if you are trying to appeal to everyone. The bad news isn't really bad news because that's why we're here today. The point of the exercise within the audience kit is to help you narrow down so that you're really clear about who your ideal customer is and you aren't so generic that you don't appeal to anyone. In this kit, we're going to create fictional avatars. So that is a profile for a customer that you envisage would buy your product or your service. You think up a person and we put in all their credentials, their age, their name, their gender, their likes, dislikes, and their overall situation. We think about their financial situation, their goals and priorities, and even the brands that they know, like, and trust, so that we have a really good idea who our ideal customer is so that we can speak to them fully. So before we get stuck in on the avatars, I'm going to quickly address why niching is so important. So let me start by saying that I'm a small business owner, and when I set up my business, I know I was terrified at the prospect of turning people down for business. And that's what niching can feel like. It's saying no to some people so that you say yes to others. But I want to give you a couple of scenarios that will show you why it's so important that we speak to some people so that we can really resonate with those specific people rather than trying to speak to everyone and not really registering with anybody. So if we think about a service-based business like an interior designer, for example, they might be inspired by dramatic, moody spaces, and their dream would be to design a stylish restaurant or bar. So if their friend found out they were setting up a business and referred them business, that might be kind or helpful at the beginning, but in the long run, designing people's nurseries or home offices isn't going to fulfill them. And furthermore, if they put that work up on their website, they're not going to attract the restaurant owners because that person's going to think that they really deal more with domestic things like home offices and nurseries. So it causes confusion and dissatisfaction in both ways. And the same is true for product businesses. So imagine that you have a natural beauty product that can be used in many ways for hair. You might be tempted, due to the versatility of the item, to say that it has an incredibly broad appeal: men, women, young, old, all kinds of hair. And it's likely that your product would improve the condition of most people's hair, regardless of their age and gender. But if you take a moment to think about how people shop and think about why they might buy your product, you might come out with a different answer. If your product is too generic with who it's made for, it's unlikely to appeal strongly to either men or women, young or old. While you know how to use the product best, the lack of specifics in the way that it's sold also mean that people with thick curly hair and fine straight hair alike will both feel that your product isn't made for their hair. So we want to be reassured that the products and services that we buy are devised or designed especially for us. It's just so that you don't waste time and money on a product that isn't any good. Niching down and speaking to a specific audience can really help you have a better connection with those people and to make sure that people clearly understand your product and that it appeals to them. So how do you do it if you haven't yet had customers, or at least you haven't had your ideal customer yet? This can be really difficult, and I know I've guided a lot of clients through this process, and I know a lot of them feel quite uncomfortable with the idea of having to think up somebody and make up these assumptions about their life. But in the audience kit, I've given you some demographic information and some further resources that you can go and look at so that you can get a bit more of a picture of people, consumer groups, and different people's lifestyles and financial factors and ages. And that could be a very helpful guide. But I would also recommend you to put aside your fears about accuracy. This isn't an exam. You are not going to be graded on this. What this is, at worst, if you create an avatar and it doesn't turn out to be right, then at worst what you've done is you've managed to really shortcut the amount of time it would have taken you to find that out if you were being generic and trying to appeal to everyone. And at best, you've given yourself a really good focus and great insight so that you know your audience better and can improve your product or service for them. Something else that can be helpful is for you to think about a previous customer, and you can base your avatars on real people. You can give them the name of a previous customer or client, or you can make up a name, and the same with the picture. It really is more about trying to humanize that end consumer and break it down so that it's, rather than a broad category where you say that your audience is women aged 16 to 35, it's really narrowing down to ambitious millennial women who care about their well-being but want environmentally friendly products, for example. And once you narrow it down, you are going to be much more popular within that niche because you're going to be much clearer about what it is you do and who you speak to. This is an exercise that you can and should revisit every few months if possible in your business, or especially if your business is going through any particular change. So you have these editable templates and you can keep coming back to them as often as you like. It's not set in stone. So with that in mind, I invite you to go for it and see how you get on with your avatars.